Hello and welcome to Tap That MTG, the show where we tell you everything we know about Magic the Gathering that is probably wrong, but fun to talk about. I'm Leslie.
And I'm Shauna.
And today we are bringing you another pre-con deep dive. In our videos, we like to go through and break down all the cards that are in the deck, talk about how you actually play the deck, what it's meant to do, how to play it wisely. And if you wait until the end, we will offer you some suggestions or minor tweaks that will maybe make this deck even better, in our opinion. But first, Sean is going to tell us what this deck is meant to do and what its name is.
Yeah. So this deck is called Growing Threat, and this deck has it's a black and white deck. So Orzhov is what people call it. The main thing in this deck, the main theme in this deck is making some incubate tokens, and we'll tell you what that is. And you're going to use these and other artifact creatures to just kill people. It'll just be fun. We like token decks. So the first thing we're going to tell you about is our commander, which Leslie is excited because it's a kitty cat commander. Brimaz, the Blight of Oreskos, is a 3/4 for 2 white and a black, and this is a Phyrexian cat. So Phyrexians are here. They're back. They're being mean. And whenever you cast a Phyrexian creature, there's going to be lots of them, or an artifact creature spell, you're going to incubate X, where X is that spell's mana value. So an incubator token is a little token, so that X is going to become X+1 counters on this little artifact token sitting there at the bottom of your field doing nothing until you pay 2 to transform it into a creature. So depending on how many counters you manage to get on it, could be 2, could be 1, could be 7, who knows. That's counters on top of this token, and it becomes a whatever creature, an artifact creature. So it's crazy. At the beginning of each end step, if a Phyrexian died under your control this turn, you get to proliferate. And if you've watched some of our videos before, proliferate is where you get to add counters to things. Whatever you want, you pick. So your little tokens are going to get bigger. So this is all about lots of counters, lots of artifacts, all that stuff. We've got another suggested commander in this deck that's a 4/5 flying, Moira and Tashar. Tashar is very fun with artifacts, and I don't remember what Moira does. I don't know if I've seen her before, but they are together as a Phyrexian spirit bird that whenever you cast a historic spell, return target non-land permanent card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, and then you exile it at the next end step. If it would leave the battlefield, exile instead of putting it anywhere else. So yeah, a historic spell is those artifacts, those sagas, or legendary creatures are historic spells as well. So your commander is a historic spell. Who knows? Lots of crazy stuff happening with this deck.
Basically, everything in the deck is historic.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. So Leslie's going to tell us a little bit about how this deck is broken down.
Yeah. Sure, absolutely. So we like to analyze. We're nerds. We like stats.
Yep.
So mana distribution. Basically, we have mostly black mana pips in this deck, but it's about a 60-40 split between black and white. Mana curve, you can see that there are 2 or 3 that are 1 mana cost. We have about 6 or 7 that are at 2 mana cost. Almost 20 at 3 mana cost. And then we go down from there, 4, 5, 6. We have, between 15 and, 7 and 10 cards on those, and a few cards that are 7 and up. You can see we have a good chunk of artifacts in this deck, which is great because you're artifact creatures. And then, of course, the light blue there, or the teal color, is all of our creature cards. So our 3 mana cost mana curve is very heavily creature and artifact based, which is always good to see. Good mana curve. As far as types and distribution goes, we have 33% of our deck as creatures, 29% as other spells, and 38% land. So, of course, there's 38 land cards in this deck. Before we analyze it, Sean's going to tell you a little bit about how we're going to analyze it.
Yeah. So we like to follow a little commander deck building formula that Wizard seems to follow fairly closely as well. So you've got your commander, of course. Then you've got ramp spells. Those are spells that help you get more mana. We all need more mana to cast these damn spells. So there's 15 of them, and there's 15 or so removal in our little formula at 13 card draw and 12 high impact. Those are the game-winning cards, cards that let you take over. And then we have other on-theme supporting type cards, at about 10 of those. And then land, the formula recommends about 34. So there's usually a little bit of wiggle room there for any of those sections. So Leslie's going to tell us about our first one, though.
First section is ramp mana generators, as Shauna said. We like to recommend 15. This deck has around 13, so really good mana curve or mana generator here. Our first one is Burnished Heart. The beauty of this one is that it is an artifact creature. So it's a 3 mana cost, 2/2 artifact creature. So if your commander's out and you cast this, you're also going to get an Incubate token with 3 counters on it, because its converted mana cost is 3, that you can then turn into a 3/3 creature later on. You can pay 3 and sacrifice it to search your library for 2 basic land cards and put them onto the battlefield, tapped, then shuffled. So
crazy. Then we have the good old Arcane Signet. It is adding 1 mana color of any color in your commander's color identity. It's a commander staple now. We love it, and it's in this deck too.
And then we have Bitterhorn Nisa's Animus. I love living weapons. I think they're just a really great little thing. So basically what it does is it comes in with a little 0/0 black Phyrexian germ. Now you did not cast that Phyrexian germ, so it will not create an incubate token. You have to cast an artifact creature. However, equipped creature gets +1/+1, and whenever an equipped creature attacks, you may search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, tapped, then shuffle. So great little living weapon, gets you in ongoing mana searching, and you can equip it to anything. So it comes out already equipped to a 0/0 germ that's now only a 1/1, but you can decide to pay 3 and equip it to something else if you want.
Yeah. Then we've got Commander Sphere, which is another nice staple to have in here. This one lets you add a mana of any color in your commander's color identity, but it also can be sacrificed later on to draw a card, which you're going to need.
And Hedron Archive, it just taps for 2, but you can also pay 2 and tap it to sacrifice it to draw 2 cards. So not only does it tap for 2, later on you can use it to draw 2.
Oh yeah, it's 2 cards, right?
Yeah.
Nice. Then we have a card called Fractured Power Stone. This is a rock, a mana rock. I'm a dork because I can never remember the word.
You are.
We call these mana rocks because they make mana. But this one also has, you can tap it to roll the planar die and activate only as a sorcery. So these decks have brought back a thing called Plains Chase, where it has another set of cards. Each of these decks are different. It's another set of cards that are planes that you're going to travel to, and it comes with a little planar die that has it's a special kind of dice that's got you either have the little change the plane. I can't remember what that little symbol's called, and then there's a chaos symbol on it as well.
Plane symbol, yeah.
Plane symbol, yeah. So if you get the plane symbol, you change the card, or chaos. There's each planar card has a weird little symbol on the bottom that is chaos. So if you roll that, chaos ensues, is what they say. So, so this is new to many people, but it's also something that's been around for a while. So this is another way to play. You've got this other deck sitting there in the middle, and they affect the game as it goes along. So an example would be the Esper one that's up here on your screen there, that you're going to the plane Alara, and your artifact spells cost 1 less to cast. So this is for you, this is for everyone around the table. So this one might be a really good one to have out. But when chaos ensues, Creatures you control that are white, blue, and or black become artifacts in addition to their other types until end of turn. Then each artifact creature you control gains vigilance, menace, and lifelink until end of turn. So it's chaos for everyone else. You love it, but everyone else is going to be like, we got to get out of here. This person is going to kill us all.
Mm-hmm.
So you can use a card like the Fractured Power Stone to roll that die, or you can also, everyone gets on their turn gets to choose to roll the dice if they want. First time is free. The next time they have to pay one. Then it's pay two. So you roll the dice for as many times as you've
You
rolled
pay
it.
mana for as many times as
Yeah,
you've rolled it
yeah,
already. Yeah.
yeah. So that's another way that you can do it. And then there's another card that Les is going to tell you about as well.
Yeah, so on that note, Ichor Elixir for 4, if you would roll one or more planar dice, instead you roll that many planar dice plus 1 and ignore one. So basically,
Mm-hmm.
when you're going to be rolling the planar dice, you roll it twice and you get to pick which one it is, depending on the results that you want. This little elixir also just taps for 2 mana if you want. So,
Yeah. Then we've got the Mind Stone, which is a great little artifact that can add one colorless mana, or you can pay one and sacrifice it to draw a card. So a little card draw piece as well.
and then we have our fun little Orzhov rocks. Of course, you can't have an Orzhov deck without our little
Yeah.
Orzhov rocks. We have the locket and the signet. The locket allows you to tap for white or black, and the signet allows you to type for white and black by paying one, which is a little bit better. If you want, you can pay for white or for black or for of any combination of those. Those symbols that have the line in between and have both mean either or. And then sacrifice it to draw 2 cards, which again is great.
Mm-hmm. Then, of course, there is a Soul Ring in this deck, which is beautiful, and everybody loves a Soul Ring. Taps for 2 colorless mana. And then the Talisman of Hierarchy. Did I say that right? I think I did. It is great to have in this deck as well. Taps for colorless, or you can tap it for the white or the black that you need, but it deals the damage to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And finally, Wayfarer's Bauble in this section is 1. You can pay 2 and sacrifice Wayfarer's Bauble to search your library for a basic land card.
Mm-hmm.
Put that card onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. So you're going to
Yeah.
want to do this fairly soon. You get it on the battlefield as soon as the next turn. Maybe you pay 2 and you sacrifice it, and then just ramp up your cards.
Yeah. So then we're on to our removal section. So the very first one that we have here is a beautiful
Wait, you
artifact.
didn't talk about the formula.
Oh, sorry. The formula calls for 15. I was too excited about this card. The formula calls for 15. The deck has about 14. The very first one is this beautiful Angel of Ruins that is an artifact creature, angel, 5/7, flying. When it enters the battlefield, exile up to 2 target artifacts or enchantments. So you're going to get rid of their annoying enchantment that's driving you crazy. And you're going to get, because this one costs 7, you're going to get a 7 counters on your little incubate token. So
Yeah,
it's going
that's
to turn
right.
into a 7/7.
Because it's an artifact creature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or you can, if you're a little bit trouble for mana and stuff and want to use this one later, you can play and cycle it for 2. So that means you discard it for 2 into your graveyard and you go find a plains. So it might help you with your ramp and then get this out later on from your
I
graveyard.
mean, you got to be pretty desperate to do that, though.
You do. You do.
Bone Shredder is a nice little Phyrexian minion. So again, Phyrexian creature. If your commander's out, when you cast this card for
Mm-hmm.
3, you're going to get another 3 incubate token with 3 counters on it. It has flying. It's a little 1/1, and it also has echo. So what is echo? Well, if you read the card, it usually explains it. There's sometimes that it doesn't have it on the card, but in this case, at the beginning of your upkeep, if this came under your control since the beginning of your last upkeep, so the next time that you have an upkeep, sacrifice it unless you pay its echo cost. So you're going to pay it, and then the next time you have to pay another 3. So this is actually a pretty expensive little card, But when it enters the battlefield, you get to destroy target non-artifact, non-black creature. So it's a little 1/1 with removal that you get to keep on the battlefield that has flying. It's going to cost you 6 over 2 turns.
Yeah. And if you had a way to get something out of your graveyard, you might want to let it die and do it again or something like that. So it's one of those trigger things. Cataclysmic Gear Hulk. I love this card, Kaladesh. It is an artifact creature as well. So it's a 4/5 for 3 and 2 white. So it's going to make your 5 counters on your thingy.
Incubate token.
Thank you.
5/5
Incubate token. Jeez. 4/5 vigilance. When it enters the battlefield, each player chooses an artifact, a creature, an enchantment, and a planeswalker from among the non-land permanents they control, then sacrifice everything else. Woo. Board wipe.
And everyone loves a Massacre Worm, a nice little 5 mana cost Phyrexian Worm. That's a 6/5. It's going to allow you to incubate 5. When Massacre Worm enters the battlefield, creatures your opponents control get -2/-2 until the end of turn. So it's a little board wipe for them, not you. And whenever a creature an opponent controlled dies, that player loses 2 life. So not only are they losing their creatures, hopefully, they're also losing 2 life for each of those creatures.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully they're not playing knights.
Hopefully. Meteor Golem, it is a little 3/3 for 7, but that's because when it enters the battlefield, you get to destroy target non-land permanent and opponent controls. Anything you want.
Yeah. This is a good example of a card that is a 3/3 for 7, that you're happy it's a 7 because you get to incubate 7.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. Care. Noxious Gear Hulk for 6. It's okay because you get to incubate 6. It's an artifact creature. Menace. 5/4. When it enters the battlefield, you get to destroy another target creature. If a creature is destroyed this way, you may gain life equal to its toughness. So all of these are telling us we need to have our commander out. Get it out as soon as you can to take advantage of.
Yeah. Phyrexian Rebirth for 4 and 2 white. It's a lovely sorcery that says destroy everything, then all creatures, and then to create an XX colorless horror artifact creature token where X is the number of creatures destroyed this way. Leslie and I played with this card in other decks. It does some silly stuff.
Now remind me, is our commander cast? Whenever you cast, you incubate, or whenever it enters?
I believe it's cast.
Yeah, it is.
I think it has to be cast.
So this planeswalker or this Phyrexian creature, when it enters the battlefield, you did not cast it. You just get it. So you don't get a incubate with that. Despark for 2 is an instant. Exile target permanent with mana value 4 or greater. Just a nice little basic targeted removal.
Excise the imperfect. Excise the demons. I don't know why that popped into my head. For 1 and 2 white, it's an instant that says exile target non-land permanent. Its controller incubates X, where X is the mana value. So you're giving them an incubate token. So you may want to think about that. But we give people elephants and beasts. So why not give them a little incubate token? I don't know, to get rid of something that is really annoying, like their little 3 mana cost Teferi or something like that. You know, get rid of it.
Or you know what? You might want to be nice. You might want to be making friends. So you just get rid of their little 2/2 or their little 1/1 token that didn't cost them anything. Yeah. And then they create a little incubate token. Go for the Throat for 2 is an instant that you just get destroy target artifact creature. So nice. Really good cost for that removal.
Yep. Mortify is an awesome little card that's instant, lets you destroy target creature or enchantment. Love it.
It's mortifying. Swords to Plowshares for 1. Exile target creature. Its controller gains life equal to its power. Exile, of course, is a great way if you're new to Commander or Magic in general to get rid of those indestructible things because you can't destroy them, so you have to exile them.
Yep. Utter End, you're going to want to use it for their really hard to get rid of. For 4, it's instant. Exile target non-land permanent. Get rid of their really nasty thing that's causing you problems.
Yeah. And of course, you can't have a Phyrexian deck that is centered around Phyrexians without having Phyrexian scriptures in there. It is a saga, which is fun. So if you're not familiar with sagas, you pay 4 mana and you put this out onto the battlefield.
Hmm.
As this saga enters the battlefield, and then after your draw step on your turn, you get to move up the saga.
Yeah.
You sacrifice it after the third. So the first turn it comes in, you get to put a 1/1 counter on up to one target creature that creature becomes an artifact in addition to its other types. The second turn, after you've drawn your card, you get to destroy all non-artifact
Ooh.
creatures. And remember, your incubate tokens are not creatures until you make them
Hmm.
creatures. And when you do make them creatures, they are artifact creatures. So
Exactly.
and then three, on your third turn, you get to exile all opponents' graveyards. So if they had a little graveyard recursion happening, like the night deck, now all of their things are exiled and they're going to cry.
Leslie likes to make me cry. Aha. She's mean. All
You
right.
like to
There.
make me cry too.
Well, that's true. That's why I always hit you first.
Yeah.
Our next section is card draw and tutors. The formula calls for 13. The deck has only about 8 in this deck, but
It's a little low.
I don't know. It's a little bit scary. Just cross our fingers, maybe. I don't know. Our first one is the First Sphere Gargantua. It is a Phyrexian horror, a 5/4 for 6. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card to lose a life. So I do like that piece. And you have Unearth as well, cost on here for 2 and a black, where you can return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, and then you have to exile it. And you can only do that as a sorcery. So you can play it twice, which is kind of nice. So, yeah.
So when you unearth it,
Mm-hmm.
is it casting it? And then is its mana cost still 6?
Okay.
Casket the Flesh Sculptor for 3
Gross.
is a little 1/3. It's a
Icky.
Phyrexian human artificer, so you get to incubate 3 if your commander's out. Sacrifice 3 other artifacts and or creatures. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put 2 of them into your hand and the other into your graveyard. So it does have partner. If you're going to use this as your commander, then you could use that as kind of an alternate. Irrelevant for this deck because it's just a card in your deck. So.
Mm-hmm. Phyrexian Gargantua, which is another Gargantua, another big Phyrexian horror. It's a 4/4 for 6. When it enters the battlefield, you draw 2 cards and you lose 2 life. So really is going to help you there. Plus, you're casting it for 6, so you're going to get a 6/6 incubate token. So that's kind of nice. So yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Phyrexian Rager for 3, you were right, is a little 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card and you lose 1 life.
Draw a card, lose life. Draw a card, lose life. Ambition's cost. It's another one. It's a sorcery, though, that you pay 3 and a black, and you can draw 3 cards and lose 3 life. But that's okay. You draw 3 cards.
Yeah, exactly. Night Whisper for 2.
Same
Guess
thing.
what? You're going to draw 2 cards, lose 2 life.
Card for life. That's awesome in my mind.
Yeah. It's
Path
fine.
of the Schemer is fine. Path of the Schemer, 4 and a black. Each player mills 2 cards. Then you put a creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It's an artifact in addition to its other types. Take something good from them. Why not? Will of the Planeswalker. So starting with you, each player votes for Planeswalker Chaos. So here we're back to that Planes deck again. If Planeswalk gets more votes, you get to Planeswalk. Otherwise, if Chaos gets more votes, Chaos ensues. So this is another way for you to do the whole Planeswalking thing. Yeah.
Without having to roll the die.
Exactly.
Coveted Jewel for 6. This is a great little card because when it's on the battlefield, it kind of helps everybody out at some point. When it enters the battlefield, you get to draw 3 cards. You can use it to tap and add 3 mana of any color, but when one or more creatures an opponent controls attacks you and aren't blocked, that player draws 3 cards and gains control of Coveted Jewel. So you're making yourself a little bit of a target because they're going to want to steal it from you. It's coveted, but right off the bat, it gets you 3 mana and draws you 3 cards. So that is a really good price to pay for getting some aggro the next turn.
Then we have our high impact cards. The formula calls for 12. The deck has 10, we think here. This card, Ancient Stone Idol, for 10, which seems like a lot. It's a 12/12, though, with flash. So that means that you can play it on your opponent's turn. And so this spell costs 1 less to cast for each attacking creature. So depending on who's attacking, you could flash this in at any time for potentially free.
Yeah.
If there are 10 things attacking, you would pay nothing for this card. It has trample as a 12/12. And when it dies, you create a 6/12 colorless construct artifact creature token with trample. Plus, you're getting a 10/10. If your commander is out, you're getting that incubate token. Woo.
Great card for this deck.
Mm-hmm.
Blight Titan is a Phyrexian giant, another great card for this deck because it's cost 6, so you get to incubate 6. It's a 6/6. It's got Death Touch. So right off the bat, it's a 6/6 with Death Touch. Awesome. But whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you get to mill 2 cards, then incubate X, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. So it's okay that there's creatures in your graveyard because you're going to be using them to create some incubate tokens, and you're just going to keep creating these extra creatures. It's okay if things die or things are in your graveyard.
Yeah. Then we have the Filigree Vector. It is a 1/1 for 4 artifact creature as well. When it enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on each of any number of target creatures and a charge counter on each of any number of target artifacts. So we haven't really seen any charge counters yet, but we know we have lots of potentially things with +1 counters. So you get to put another one on, and you can pay 1 and tap this to sacrifice another artifact and proliferate, adding more counters again. So that could be crazy.
We didn't put a lot of extra proliferate in our tweaks, but that is something
You could do for sure.
you could also do.
Yeah.
So we've already talked about Moira and Teshar, but I'm going to talk about them again here because very high impact card is a 5 mana cost 4/5 with flying. When you cast a historic spell, again, legendary, saga, and artifacts from your graveyard, you get to, sorry, you get to return a target online permanent card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So here's some graveyard recursion. It's okay if they're in the graveyard because you have this to return them. It gains haste, but then you have to exile at the beginning of the next end step. If it would leave the battlefield, exile it instead. So you are kind of taking them out of your graveyard, but you get that one last thing for them. So
yeah. Phyrexian Triniform, it's a 9 cost artifact creature as well, a 9/9. That's Phyrexian too. So when it dies, you create 3 colorless Phyrexian Golem artifact creature tokens. And it's got Encore of 12. So that Encore thing where you can exile it, pay 12 and exile it from your graveyard. For each opponent, create a token copy that attacks that opponent this turn. They gain haste, and then you have to sacrifice them. So
nice. Well, and the beauty of these big ones, like Sola New Phyrexia for 6, is that is any color mana or colorless mana. So artifact creatures are easy to get out. 6/6 with trample. You can pay 5 colorless or any color. Permanents you control gain indestructible until the end of turn. So you've built up your board. You might want to keep them. If someone does a board wipe, and then you can also pay 5 and exile Soul of New Phyrexia from your graveyard. Permanents you control gain indestructible till the end of turn. So it doesn't matter whether it's on the battlefield or not. You can still do that once at least.
Yeah. So Victimize, this card is in high impact because for 2 and a black, all you have to do is choose 2 target creature cards in your graveyard. So you're going to put those big guys in there before turn 3, potentially. Sacrifice a creature, doesn't matter. If you do, you get to return those chosen cards to the battlefield tapped.
Yeah.
2.
Yeah, just tradesies.
It's very, very crazy.
Yeah. 1 for 2, and it can be anything.
Yeah.
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 Yawgmoth Vile Offering for 5 is a legendary sorcery. You may cast a legendary sorcery only if you control a legendary creature or planeswalker. So you do have to have a legendary creature on the battlefield in order to cast this, but you get to put one target creature or planeswalker card from your graveyard onto the battlefield under your control, and then you destroy up to one target creature or planeswalker. So you get something and you get to destroy
Ooh.
something. Exile Yawgmoth Vile Offering after that. So nice little high
Ooh.
impact removal and
Yes,
grave recursion.
definitely. Sculpting Steel is a little artifact for 3 that you may have it enter the battlefield as a copy of any artifact on the battlefield.
Nice.
That could be big.
Yeah. And then Living Weapon Scythe Claw for 5. Again, as I said, I love these living weapons. Equipped creature gets +1/+1, and when equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses half their life rounded up. Wonderful little card to have.
So mean.
It's going to come out attached to like a little 0/0 black Phyrexian germ creature token. So it's only a
Mm-hmm.
little 1/1 when it comes out. But you can pay 3 and attach this to any other creature. Your germ will die, but that's fine because you can put it on something with trample. And if it has trample, then it's going
Nice.
to do
Oops.
damage, hopefully, unless they can block it all. So,
Right. All right, so then we're into our other cards that are on theme or supporting this theme. And the first one, the formula goes for 10. And this deck has about 16, I think. So we've got the first one here is Blade Splicer. I really like this card for some reason. I don't know why. It's a 1/1 for 2 and a white, a Phyrexian Human Artificer. That when it enters the battlefield, it makes a 3/3 colorless Phyrexian Golem artifact creature token. And golems you control have first strike. So there's a few cards in here that have golem abilities there. So maybe this could be potentially really good. It's not going to do anything when with your commander or anything, but it is going to make an artifact creature, which could be helpful. So
yeah.
it's a 2-for-1 thing.
And Bloodline Pretender is a little 3 mana cost 2/2. It is a artifact creature, so you get an incubate token. It's a shapeshifter, so that means it is also, as it explains, changeling. This card is every creature type. So not only is it an artifact creature, it's also a Phyrexian for your purposes. It is also a golem for your purposes. Basically, it's everything. And as it enters the battlefield, you get to choose a creature type. Whenever another creature of the chosen type enters the battlefield under your control, you put a 1/1 counter on this. So you could choose artifact creature, you could choose Phyrexian creature. I would suggest in this deck choosing one of those, Phyrexian or artifact creature.
Yeah. Completed Huntmaster, it is a Phyrexian Elf Warrior, a 2/3 for 3. And you can pay 1 and tap this to sacrifice another creature or artifact to incubate 3. So it's going to sit there and make more incubate tokens for you, which could be really potentially handy. Yeah, you can sacrifice creatures as they block attackers. That's kind of useful, and then you've got something that's going to be attacking them next turn potentially. So, yeah, it's a really great little card that you could really do a lot with if you get your timing and everything right. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Dark Steel Splicer for 7. Yay. Phyrexian Artificer, you pay 7 for a little 1/1. Why would you do that? Well, number one, you get a 7/7 incubate token. And when it or another non-token Phyrexian enters the battlefield under your control, you create X 3/3 colorless Phyrexian Golem artifact creature tokens, where X is the number of opponents you have. Golems you control have indestructible. So there's one of the golem cards that kind of takes advantage. Most commander games have 3 opponents, so you're going to be getting 3 every time you cast a Phyrexian. You're going to be getting another 3 golems. They all have indestructible, so yeah, worth it.
Yeah. Duplicant, it's a 2/4 for 6. It's a shapeshifter as well, and has imprint. So when it enters the battlefield, you may exile target non-token creature. And as long as a card exiled with duplicant is a creature card, it has the power, toughness, and creature types of the last creature card exiled with it. It's still a shapeshifter. So Yeah. Who knows what you want to do with that?
Yeah.
Have a little fun. Steal their
It's a
stuff.
golem. It's a Phyrexian. It's an
Yeah.
artifact creature.
Yeah.
Changeling is also, or Graveshifter is also a changeling for 2/2. When Graveshifter enters the battlefield, you may return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So
Hmm.
this is kind of the way they're getting around these little shapeshifters, is a way they're getting around putting some creatures in that have some higher value, but also will be Phyrexians or artifact creatures when they come in.
Exactly. Yeah. And then we have Master Splicer. This is a good little 1/1 for 3 and a white that makes a golem. And golems get +1/+1. So
Mhm.
helps with that golem theme.
Yep. And Mirror Battle Sphere, when it enters the battlefield, you create 4/1/1 colorless mirror artifact creature tokens. It's an artifact creature itself that costs 7. Whenever Mirror Battle Sphere attacks, you may tap X untapped mirrors you control. If you do, Mirror Battlesphere gets +X/+0 until the end of turn and deals X damage to a player or planeswalker it's attacking. So basically, you can use those little 4 mirror that you created to tap and make it a 8/7 instead. So.
Mm-hmm. Then we have Phyrexian Delver. It's a 3/2 for 5. When it enters the battlefield, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. You lose life equal to that card's mana value, but you could potentially get back something pretty big.
Mm-hmm. Phyrexian Ghoul for 3. It's a little 2/2. You can sacrifice a creature and it gets +2/+2 until the end of turn. Some nice little
Nice.
support.
Mm-hmm. Psychosis Crawler for 5. Its power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards in your hand. And whenever you draw a card, each opponent loses a life. There's not a ton of card draw in this deck, but hey, could
You
potentially
draw
be
one per
pretty
turn.
good. Yep, exactly.
40 turns later.
Yep.
Scrap Trawler for 3. It's a
Mm-hmm.
3/2. Is a construct, and when Scrap Trawler or another artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you return to your hand target artifact card in your graveyard with lesser mana value. So
Mm-hmm.
cycling things from your graveyard. There's a lot of different converted mana cost things out there in this deck, and as you saw, there's some 7 mana cost, 9 mana cost. So a 9 mana cost thing goes in the graveyard, you get to return a 7 mana cost thing to your hand. So
Yeah.
there's some really nice synergy there.
Yeah. Shattered Angel. It's a 3/3 flyer for 3 and 2 white that says whenever a land enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, you gain 3 life. Let them play all their land smatter
Mm,
kinds of things. That's
yeah,
okay.
that's okay. You get some life from it.
Yep.
Shimmer Mirror for 3 is a little 2/2. It has flash, which means you can play it at instant speed. You may cast artifact spells as though they had flash. So that is going to be a nice little support in this deck.
Mm-hmm. Vulpine Harvester. It's a 3/3 Phyrexian Fox. Looks kind of cool. It's for 4. Whenever one or more Phyrexians you control attack, you get to return target artifact card from your graveyard to the battlefield if its mana value is less than or equal to their total power.
Mm-hmm.
Again, could potentially be something big, or even just returning your commander sphere so you can draw another card. Who knows?
Yep. And then Nettle Cyst for 3. It's a piece of equipment. Again, a living weapon. I don't know why I got all the living weapons, but maybe because I
Yeah.
like them. Um, this equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact or enchantment you control. So it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be quite big. And I would suggest probably putting on something that has trample.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that brings us to land. So this deck has 38. The formula calls for about 34, so that might be where you want to take some stuff out. There's one land that I thought was really fun. I wanted to point out that's called the Vault of the Archangel, and you can pay 2 and the white and black and tap it, and creatures you control gain death, touch, and lifelink until end of turn. So
Nice.
you could do that at any time. It's pretty awesome.
Great little land to have in there. I love
Yeah,
land that has good abilities like that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So now we're on to our tweaks. Thank you so much for sticking around and chatting with us and finding out what this deck does. We have a few suggestions for you. Of course, they're not the only suggestions. We definitely want to hear what you have. But our first tweak that we thought you could maybe put in this deck is Mycosynth Golem. Mycosynth?
Yeah.
It is 11 mana cost, which is really great for Incubate. It's a 4/5 and it has affinity for artifacts, which means this spell costs one less to play for each artifact you control. So it's probably going to be free, but its mana cost is still 11. So you're going to incubate as well as play it for free. Artifact creature spells you play have affinity for artifacts. So now all your
Mhm.
artifacts have affinity for artifacts.
Yeah.
So we definitely thought with mana curve being really high on some of these that affinity is something you're probably going to want to add, and this
Yeah.
is one of the best ones. If you can find this card, we think you should add it.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, all your little artifacts that you could potentially have, all those little tokens, it could potentially be free, which is really nice. And if you have a card like Blightsteel Colossus, this is an 11/11 for 12. It's an artifact creature as well, a golem, but it has trample, infect, and indestructible. And the fact that it's an 11/11 trample, if they don't kill it, the infect will kill them, because with infect, all you have to do is 10 damage to a player and they get 10 infect, right, Leslie?
Yeah,
And then
poison
they're
counters.
dead.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But if it would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, you reveal it and shuffle it into its owner's library instead. So it really never dies. It's always going to be there. Yeah. So if you
So
have one, it's a very expensive card. But if you have one, play it.
So infect is a little bit different than the new mechanic that gives poison counters, which for some
Right.
reason is off the top of my head. I can't remember what it's called. Shauna will remember because she's been playing it in Magic Arena.
What is it called?
You'll think about that while I explain infect. So infect is a little different than other damage because instead of doing damage to it, you
Toxic.
do just poison counters. So that, let's say 5 damage gets through from this trample, they don't actually lose 5 life. They just get 5 poison counters. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
replacement effect rather than as
Right.
well. Toxic.
Toxic.
There's that
Yes.
word. I knew it
Yep.
would come to me. Toxic is different because toxic, which you see in a lot of the new Phyrexian stuff, also it does damage as well as gives
Yep.
poison counters based on how much toxic it is. So
I always forget about that with infect, that it doesn't actually deal damage. It
yeah,
just deals those poison things.
yeah.
So
So Elish Norn is another one that we thought if you can find
mm-hmm.
it or have it, that would be a good addition. It's a 4 mana cost 3/5 that is a Phyrexian predator, so counts for that incubate as a Phyrexian. It has vigilance, and then whenever a source an opponent controls deals damage to you or a permanent you control, that source's controller loses 2 life unless they pay 1. So now as they're doing damage to you, they can
Mm-hmm.
swing in. It's kind of like a propaganda where they have to pay to attack you, but
Mm-hmm.
instead of having to pay to attack you, they have to pay to not lose life, which is kind
Yeah.
of fun. And then 3 mana, they can sacrifice 3 other creatures and exile Elish Norn and return it to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control, activate only as a sorcery, and then it flips over. And you get a saga, which is fun. This is Argent Etchings. When it first comes in, it's going to do its level 1 ability, which is incubate 2 5 times. So you create 5 little incubate tokens with 2 counters
Mm-hmm.
on them. Then you transform all incubator tokens that you control for free. So all of those little incubate tokens that you've been creating and you've been waiting to make
Yep.
creatures, now you just make them creatures for free. So
Mm-hmm.
that would be cool.
Yep.
And then on your next turn after your draw step, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain double strike until the end of turn. And then on your third turn, you get to destroy all other permanents except for artifacts, lands, and Phyrexians. Exile the Argent Etchings, then return it to the battlefield. What?
She
Face
comes
front up.
back.
So then you get
Yep.
your Elish Norn back.
Yep. Do it all
So, I
over again.
mean, this is a really good card for this deck. Not in there,
Yeah.
obviously. They can't give you all the good stuff, as we
Yeah.
always say. But this is meant for this deck, I'm sure. Or this
Yeah.
deck is meant for this card.
Yeah. I think so, for sure. Then we had Leslie found this card, and if you're one of the Transformer fans, this is really fun to put one of your Transformer cards into this deck. This one, Blitzwing Cruel Tormentor. It is a legendary artifact robot creature for 5 and a black that has more than meets the eye, which is you pay 3 and a black and you may cast this card for its converted mana cost of 4 instead. So at the beginning of your end step, target opponent loses life equal to the life that player lost this turn. If no life is lost this way, you get to convert our little robot friend into its vehicle form, transform it, and it's a 3/5 living metal. So as long as it's your turn, this vehicle is also a creature. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, choose flying or indestructible at random. Blitzwing gains that ability until end of turn, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you have to flip it back to its 6/5 side. So it's really fun if you want to play with your little Transformers.
Artifact creatures. If you're gonna do artifact creatures, you might have might as well put
That'd
some
be fun.
Transformers in.
Yeah.
Of course, Platinum Angel, the angel that everyone loves to hate. It's an artifact creature though, so why not? It costs 7, so you get an Incubate 7 token. It has flying. It's a 4/4. You can't lose life, or you can't lose the game, and your opponents can't win the game. So, too bad for them. They got to kill Platinum Angel before they can kill anything else.
This one too, Platinum Empyrean. It's an 8/8 golem as well for 8. Your life total can't change. It's just mean.
Yeah. Good additions.
God.
Good additions.
Yeah.
Essence of Orthodoxy for 5 is a little 3/3 flyer. It is a Phyrexian, so that takes advantage of the things in your deck. And whenever Essence of Orthodoxy or another Phyrexian enters the battlefield under your control, you get to incubate 2. So that's adding some incubate that has good value. That would be a good one to add.
Yeah. And then if you're a Warhammer fan and have this Warhammer spider, poor Leslie didn't get to talk about the spider. 4/4 for 5, an artifact that has flying and has Fabricator Claw Array, which says whenever another non-token artifact creature or vehicle enters the battlefield under your control, you can draw a card. So this is a great little addition if you can get access to this card to really help you with that whole card draw thing. It's an artifact, and you're going to be playing lots of those creature. So, yeah.
Yeah, remember when you go back, you can flip back to the other, but there's not a lot of card draw in this. No. We were actually quite surprised that Solemn Simulacrum was not in this deck. I feel that Wizards dropped the ball a little bit. If you're listening to us and watching our videos, Wizards, like I'm sure you are.
Yeah, for sure.
This 4 mana cost 2/2 should have been in this deck.
Yeah.
But when it enters the battlefield, you get to search your library for a basic land card, and when it dies, you get to draw a card. So it's an artifact creature. It has card draw and mana ramp, and just good.
It really should have. If you're going to replace anything, put that card in.
Yeah.
Sunfall. This is a 3 mana cost sorcery, a new one that says exile all creatures, and you incubate X, where X is the number of creatures exiled this way. So, it's good board wipe to save you.
300 creatures on the battlefield. No, probably closer to 20.
You never know.
Archfiend of Dross is a flying 6/6 for 4, which is great. It is a Phyrexian demon with flying. When it enters the battlefield, it enters with 4 oil counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, you will get to remove an oil counter from it, and then if it has no oil counters on it, you lose the game. So there's a little bit of a clock if you put this on the battlefield. However, whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, its controller loses 2 life. So this is where you're going to put it on the battlefield if you decide to put this in, and you're going to say, okay, here we go. Let's make all of my creatures into Phyrexians or into artifact creatures, all my little incubate tokens, and I'm just going to swing with abandon because it's okay. My things can die. They're going to lose 2 life. They're going to have to block, and I have 4 turns to get this game over with.
Yeah. And we kind of mentioned that proliferate thing, so we didn't talk about proliferate in our tweaks here, but if you do add some more proliferate cards, you can proliferate the oil counters on here, and then who cares? you're
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if you lose a counter because you're just going to put another counter back on. So if you got a way to make the counter stay on this thing, it's never going away. And yeah, it does a lot of work in standard right now. And yeah, I hate this
And
card.
remember, our secondary possible
So good.
commander had the proliferate thing on it already. So there
Exactly.
is a couple cards that are good with
Yeah.
proliferate in this deck. So
Yeah. I think this Archfiend would be really powerful in this deck. So
mhm.
Gix as well, the Yawgmoth Raider. It's a 3/3 for 3. Um, it is a Phyrexian, and yeah, this one I think would be really strong in this deck too. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, its controller may pay a life. If they do, they draw a card. So um, you can help out your opponents with this card. It's going to help you get stuff. So that again, with that fixing your card draw stuff, and you can pay 4 and 3 black and discard X cards and exile the top X cards of target opponent's library, and you may play lands and cast spells from among those cards without paying their mana costs. So I do a lot of stuff for you. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And then our last tweak, of course, is Norn's Choirmaster. Speaking of
Mm-hmm.
proliferate, this is a
Yeah.
5 mana cast Phyrexian Angel, 5/4, which is good in and of itself because it has flying and first strike. But whenever a commander you control enters the battlefield or attacks, so if it's already out there, you're going to attack with it,
Mm-hmm.
you get to proliferate. So you can put more counters on your incubate tokens, or you can incubate oil counters if you decided to put the
Yeah.
stupid demon in there.
Exactly. We were surprised that this card wasn't in this deck, but
Yeah.
again, we always say that wizards can't give you everything. So
Yeah.
it's crazy, crazy.
All those rares and mythics.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, thanks for watching. That's it for this time, and we are grateful that you hung around this long. If you want to hang out with us, we're available on YouTube and Twitch. Feel free to connect with us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. We'd love to hear how you guys would tweak this deck, what kinds of things you would add. Would you add more proliferate? What would you do? And that's it for this time. And we'll see you next time. In the meantime,
Tap those magic cards and have fun doing it. Bye, guys.
bye.